And what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Designated Players and MLS podcast. At this point, when you're listening, Leagues Cup group stage is said and done. Some teams have been impressive, some have not. On today's episode, we're going to recap the group stages, talk a little bit about some of the more impressive teams, the least impressive teams, talk about some of these weird, crazy Leagues Cup moments that have come through already, and round it off maybe with some predictions or maybe with some just kind of thoughts on the groups themselves. Really exciting, really let down, things like that. I'm Andrew. That's Connor, and here is Leagues Cup Roundup. Connor, how you doing, buddy?
I'm great. I can't wait to talk about the most disappointing team in this League's Cup that I won't spoil yet because we'll talk about it later, but stoked to talk about them.
You can't call Red Bull disappointing when we both predicted them to be bad at penalties. I'm just saying.
I didn't say anything about Red Bull. Don't put
You
words
didn't
into my
need to. I
mouth.
could see it in your eyes. You got those
You can't
eyes.
see. No, no, my eyes are covered by my glasses. See, look. Now I have the monitors on that you can't see them.
Nerd. Yeah, no, listen, Leagues Cup has been really fun. I've been doing a lot of traveling for our my new team that I'm coaching, so haven't had a ton of time to watch everything. I've also been in the gym a little bit more too,
Bam.
getting big. Um, but the
Bam.
that what I have seen has been really, really enjoyable. I'll be honest with you, it's been a little bit less enjoyable than last time. I don't think that's a hot take. I think there have been obviously some good moments, but it's definitely been a little bit, I guess, watered down. I think the first year the bar was set so high, right? Messi came in and did Messi things. There were like 16 round penalties, and the Tigres goalkeeper like pulling a handkerchief out of his mouth. I mean, things were just off the next level. But still, some really, really good games this knockout, or this group stage rather, getting into the knockouts. Whether you have watched your team do really well or, like us, watched our teams do really poorly. We could sit here and chat about all the teams individually, but we've kind of done that already. So we're just going to focus again more on the individual bright spots, impressive teams, least impressive teams, maybe some individual players that we thought have been really good. But we can't do any of that, and I mean any of it, without a nice little scarf of the week. So what are you rocking?
So I originally brought this scarf because I thought we were talking about something else. So I will spin it as a potential team that could be looked at as most impressive. I mean, it's way too early to put them on that stage right now, but I had a St. Louis scarf. Um, they did win their first game against Dallas, so uh, yeah, I mean they didn't like beat them down or anything like that. But if they can beat Juarez, then top of the group. Hard to say that that's not in the conversation for most impressive.
Yeah, well, when you talk about the individuals, right? The individual players, when I was kind of hinting at that, some of the people that came to mind were on that St. Louis team, specifically two of their new signings, both getting on the score sheet in Too Short and Hartel. Hartel from the penalty spot, getting an early lead into Penn Merchant territory. Really love that from him.
Parcel
Understands.
Partel.
Yeah, Parcel Partel, really love that. I mean, he's got 100% of his goals for St. Louis from the penalty spot. That's kind of wild if you think about it.
Watch out, Pozdog. He's coming
Right.
for your title.
I saw Pozdog was rumored for a move away, which would be, I think, a really
No,
good.
that would be heartbreaking.
It'd be terrible for us, but I think it'd be a really good move for Philly in this kind of rebuild era.
We need to insert the Pep Guardiola quote, the one about Sergio Aguero. We cannot replace him.
We cannot replace him. Here's Kayvon Sullivan, who's going to step up as a 15-year-old and torch the league.
No, no, no. I'm just talking about from the penalty spot. We cannot replace that level of pen merchantry.
Jaime Moreno comes out of the woodworks. Sign me up,
Bring
coach.
him out of retirement.
you you only get him on for one penalty at a time. I love it. For me, I am going with a team that has impressively topped their group officially as of last night, and that is the Vancouver Whitecaps. I believe it's official that they have topped their group.
Yeah,
I'll double check.
they topped. They topped.
Yeah, I believe I heard that during the Monterrey game that they are going to host in the next round. They have done really well, and I'll be honest with you, I cannot remember our predictions because there were so many of them. But if I look back at them with
I
LAFC and
I
Tijuana, I
Yeah, I bet we had
think,
LAFC 1, Vancouver 2 is my
and
guess.
Tijuana 3. Yeah, that sounds about
Yeah.
right. Yeah, but
So pretty
officially
close.
official.
Pretty
You know,
close. I
the
mean, we got the teams going through correctly, just in the wrong spot.
Yeah, yeah. Well, a big result against Tijuana, right? And again, individuals, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, but a big showing by, I believe his first name is Isaac, as I looked this up really quick. Yes, Isaac Bomer, the kind of reserve goalkeeper for Vancouver, who came up massive in that penalty shootout against LAFC to give them that second point. So we'll talk a little bit about individuals and players of that nature, but I think we start off with the big picture about impressive teams. Teams, you know, our predictions I think came out pretty okay, but I think there were definitely some teams that overperformed what we were thinking. So out of your opinions, because you don't speak in facts, you speak in opinions. Who was kind of the more impressive of the groups that you watched so far?
I mean, there's one team, and it is a fact. It is a absolute fact that they I don't want to say overperform because it makes it sound like, oh, they're doing better than they should be, but just overperformed our expectations. And that's Austin FC, 100%. And I understand that every game was played in their stadium, and that could definitely be a benefit to them. But that was a really tough group. We talked about that. Pumas and Monterrey are both very, I don't know too much about Liga MX, but I will say that they're at least very solid teams in that league. And Austin was going to be up against some seriously tough competition there. And they've showed up and beat both of them without even going to penalties. They've done an amazing job. I think we both had them last in our group, so they've absolutely outperformed what we were expecting from them.
Yeah, a brilliant performance from them. As you mentioned, we both had them down at the bottom. Equally as shocking is Monterrey, one of the favorites of this tournament, going home in the group stage. And I know people are going to be like, oh, Liga MX doesn't take it seriously. Well, they were pretty pissed when they walked off the field losing in penalties to Pumas. I mean, they looked furious. So complain all you want. They were not happy leaving this tournament, especially as one of the favorites, thinking that as long as they can get in, they can go on a run. Very playoff mindset, right? And missing three penalties in a row, a huge performance by the Pumas goalkeeper, Julio Gonzalez, somebody I think we mentioned in our kind of preview that he was going to be a big focus, and he came up huge with big penalty saves in that game last night. Agreed with you on Austin. That was one of my first picks as well. But the other team that I want to call out here is DC United, coming up really, really big in both games, coming back from, I believe it was 2 goals down. No, they were up
They
one.
were beating Atlanta, I think, the
Yes, they
entire
were
time.
up and they held on as Atlanta came back. That again needed probably a dodgy penalty to get in there. I do remember that game. If I remember, I fell asleep because I thought it was going to be a stinker, and I woke up it was 3-3. I was like, "What is going on?" Listen, Jared Stroud, big game out of him against Atlanta, right? And then going into a Santos Laguna team who we agreed were not the strongest of the strong, and absolutely wiping the floor with them. Benteke doing really, we mentioned Benteke going to be the focus. He scored in both games, but then who steps up around them? They scored 6 goals in 2 games, and only 2 of them from Benteke. Stroud's got 2 of them. Benteke's got 2 of them, and then Kuti Pietro's got on one, and Dahome again has one. Somebody that I mentioned as a player to watch. Not tooting my own horn or anything, but really impressive to see what Troy Lesesne's group could do here. And as a dark horse, and I don't want to put that jinx on anybody too early, but they kind of have this mindset to me that they could go on a pretty decent run just as a group of players who know how to play in knockout tournaments. They clearly shown that they can. They didn't lose, right? They've got a win and a draw, but that draw got them an extra point with the penalties. They were strong in penalties. There's still pieces of that team I'm not super sold on. However, I feel like there's just something about them right now that could get them be that how every knockout tournament has like one team that's like, what are you doing here? Like last year, Querétaro made like the semifinals or something. It was like you're 16th in the league for the last like 4 years. What are you doing here? I feel like this could be DC this year.
I couldn't disagree more.
That's all right. You don't
But
know wrong.
that's fine. I think DC has one of the easiest groups in the entire tournament. I mean, they've got Atlanta in a full rebuild stage and couldn't even beat them in regular time. And honestly, we're a Bartosz Slisz penalty disaster class away from losing that game, either in penalties or not in penalties. And then they came up against Santos Laguna, who, let's just be frank, stink. Like they have one goal in Liga MX, couldn't even score against DC. I think they're in worse shape than probably most teams in this competition. And I think once DC comes up against some like actual competition, I think they're going to have a tough time. I mean, they, like I said, Atlanta just sold all of their big time attackers and still put 3 goals past DC. Could have put 4 if they had scored their penalty. So if you're coming up against a team like, I mean, I don't know what group they get matched up against, but if they come up against like an FCC, because I just see them right below in the group below, I think FCC is going to cook them. So it's going to depend on how much they can continue to keep scoring these goals. But I think if they dry up in the goal scoring department, they're going to be in trouble. So I'm not sold on them yet. I need to see them beat some tougher competition first.
You have to beat the team that's in front of you, and they've done that. And I think
Of
they prepped
course,
well.
yes.
I think they prepped
Credit to them
well.
for
I
that.
think they approached it really well. And that is some, again, in knockout tournament, all you need to do is ride the high, right? It doesn't matter if you're beating up on not so good teams, because now you've got a confidence about you. So it'd be interesting to watch. I mean, the knockout rounds are going to be even more intense, right? Because now you're 3 games away from a couple $1 million, 2 games away from a couple $1 million, and a Champions League spot. I mean, there's so much more on the line now that it's going to matter how these teams set up and go about things. It's going to be an interesting tactical battle. You got any other teams that you want to mention?
Yes. The Portland Timbers have looked fantastic so far this tournament. And I think they've really turned a leaf even lately, even before Leagues Cup had kicked in. But they won both of their games in a tough group. Club Leon and Colorado is not a cakewalk of a group for sure. Like both the Colorado's had a very good season this year. Club Leon has struggled a little bit this year. They don't have any wins yet in the 4 games in the Liga MX, but we know historically they've been a pretty good club. So I think they've done a really good job. 6 goals scored, 1 conceded in those 2 games. So they are flying on both sides of the ball. And I think for me, I think Portland's going to be a serious threat in this tournament. I think they could definitely be poised for a deep run, especially because I think that attack is clicking on all cylinders. So it's just going to be, for me, it's just a question of what's the back line going to look like. Can Kamal Miller, Zach McGraw, and Crepeau hold down that back line enough to allow that attack to just score a couple goals a game and watch them move on throughout and make a deep run in the tournament?
Yeah, and I'll come back to that group. I agree with you, but I think we both had Portland at 1, didn't we? So they weren't really overperformed, but they have done. I think they performed better than even we had expected. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
They knocked the snot out of Colorado. I mean, that was
Oh yeah, that was a beatdown.
dang near embarrassing. And I'm going to come back to that in a little bit here, because that, no spoiler alerts, but we're talking about some least impressive teams here, and somebody from that group's going to be in there, and there are only 3 in the group, and it's not Portland, so you know pick your poison. But I do actually want to go talk about a Liga MX side that I think we both underestimated, and that is a team currently sitting at the top of the group with a game. They've qualified for the next round now. It's just a matter of which way is it going to go, and that's FC Juarez out of Group C. I believe, if I remember correctly, we put them both down. We both put them down at the 3rd spot. We didn't think they were going through. It was either going to be St. Louis or Dallas, and they have looked strong, right? They went into a Dallas side that, again, underperformed, but had kind of like that new coach buzz, and the group that we expected them to get out of. If I just look up really quick here, I mean, they've got a ton of goals 6 goals in 4 games, but they've also conceded 9. They've only got 1 point. They've only gotten 1 draw out of 4 games. To come in here and not only score 2, right, which they were clearly capable of doing, but also prevent goals coming out of the $12 million striker like Pitar Musa, who's got, I think, 12 or 13 on the year right now, is something I wasn't expecting. So still another game to figure out if they're legit or not. But out of just the 1 game that they played, I thought they looked really solid, and definitely interested to see how they get on tonight against St. Louis at 9 o'clock.
I don't know if I have anybody else in the most impressive.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the rest is somewhat par of the course, but I
Yeah.
definitely have some in the least impressive.
Oh, well, I mean, who am I to pass up a transition like that? Please go right ahead.
Well, you covered one of them already. I think the biggest one has got to be Monterrey. I think not qualifying for the next round was definitely a big miss for them. I mean, I think Pumas and Austin might be a little bit of an underrated group. I think that's probably a little bit tougher than we had given it credit for, especially considering Austin played every game at home. But they absolutely should have been getting out of that group 100%. And they had the opportunity to last night when they played Pumas. They at least took it to penalties. If they won the penalty shootout, they moved on, but they were extremely disappointing in penalties. But it's a team that they shouldn't have even been in that situation. They should have been able to get out of this group, and it was a very disappointing tournament for them. And people, and like you said, people are. I've already seen the millions of claims. Oh, jeez, Louise. I've already, I've already seen the millions of claims talking about how Monterrey doesn't care. Like I watched the one clip of I think it was Owen Wolf just
Mm-hmm.
kind of like dancing
Yeah,
out of some
torching through them.
tackles.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and then played the ball and behind. And everybody's like, "Oh, look, Monterrey doesn't care. Like, watch them like not even try to defend." It's like uh, pretty clearly to me looked like they were trying to do an offside trap that just didn't work, and hence why they didn't move because they were trying to play him offside. But people have their agendas and they can stick with it. This is a really long-winded way of me saying Red Bull. I'm going to talk about Red Bull
No, you're
because
not. You're out. Goodbye.
yes, I am
You're blocked.
100%. I didn't. I still think Pachuca will top the group. However, I did have Red Bull second because I thought they should 100% be better than Toronto. They put up a good game against Pachuca. Like they took it to penalties. I think that's even if they weren't able to win that game, that's fine. But they should have beat Toronto, whether in penalties or just in regular time. I think they should have beat Toronto. And had they done that, I think they'd be in the next round and probably in that second place spot. However, they lost in penalties on both games, and now they're out. And I think that's disappointing for them. But at the end of the day, and I think we've talked about this offline, probably a good thing for them. Get some time to recuperate, get some guys back from injury, and just get ready to make a push for the rest of the MLS season. So probably a blessing in disguise for that team.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm usually always right with predictions, as we know, but I don't think I've ever been this spot on where I sat down. I was like, yeah, Red Bull's going to be third. And it's not because they're bad. It's because they can't win in penalties. They can't score. We've got no depth and we suck at penalties. And what happens? We couldn't score. Our depth pieces did nothing. And then we get the penalties and we choke it away, not once, but twice. We were in the lead on both of those penalties and choked them away both times. I mean, it's next level terrible. And you're going to get that with a young team that we continue to rotate out and whatever. But again, as I mentioned in the preview episode, I'm not super disappointed by this. I would have loved to play for the money. I would have loved to play for the Champions Cup spot, but in a team that has two healthy center midfielders, a striker who can't score if you pass it to him on the goal line. I mean, a defensive group that is holding on for dear life at this point. But we were playing with a right back at left back. We were playing with an attacking mid as a number six. No Emil Forsberg. Peter Stroud was out injured. Tolkien gone on international duty. I mean, we were playing pretty bare bones. I think at one point, if you looked at our bench, it was a backup goalkeeper in Ryan Mera, a backup center back in maybe Reyes or somebody who wasn't on there, one backup midfielder who had some MLS time, and the rest were literally teenagers, like 8 teenagers on the bench. It just we're so down bad right now, and that's why I wasn't shocked when we went out. And it's disappointing. I would have really loved to move on and play other new teams. And I enjoyed the match against Pachuca. It was a different challenge, and they approached it really well. But I'm more excited to see us come back a bit healthier. There's rumors that Jared Stroud might be in the mix for Charlotte away, which hopefully I will be at the 24th of August. And that's just going to make the team better. Like we had to survive like a 3-week stretch to get to past Leagues Cup, because right now we are just running on fumes. So not super disappointed with that. However, a team that will be relatively disappointed, and I mentioned it before, if they don't get the result in, I believe it's tomorrow's match. Yeah, tomorrow's match is Colorado Rapids. Colorado comes in as a team that is doing fairly well in the MLS season, sitting fourth in the West with 41 points. I mean, they are 5 points clear of the drop out of the playoffs. They are 7-8 points outside of top of the West. I mean, they're right in it. And they just got walked by a Portland side that is really good at scoring goals, but also doesn't keep them out very well. And I understand the reasoning for this being lack of players like a Jordy Mihailovic who can control the game. But I believe that there was a really good description of it where Cole Bassett, who's usually playing as a six next to Connor Ronan, is being thrust into a number 10 role where Jordy used to play or usually plays, and it's throwing the whole chemistry off of the team. They don't really have that ball progressing number six or a player at a number 10 who can do a job like Jordan Mihailovic can. He's very, very unique, right? And then just underperformance of a lot of different players that you don't expect out of a group like this. So they're going to need a big rebound. And, when we talk about Red Bull, who probably needed this to go and back off and, we'll try it again, next year or whatever. I don't think Colorado was in that group. I think this was a tournament Colorado could have gone decently far in. I know Leon's a tough team and it's going to be relatively difficult for them. But I thought this was a tournament they could have gone at least a little bit farther in and then get a little bit of confidence behind them and say, yeah, we can definitely make a press for top of the West or keep our home playoff spot or whatever it may be. This may be, if they go into Leon and get smacked like 3-0, this could be a really bad end of the year for them. It could set up for a really, really bad spiral.
That's what I need. Colorado's outdoing my predictions for them in the standings. I need them to go down a little bit. So I'd be on board for that. Sorry, Colorado fans. I got to put my predictions ahead of your team. Sorry. Yeah, I'll chime in with another disappointing team for me, FC Dallas. I had them top of that group. I can't remember if you had them top or if you had St. Louis top. I think I had Dallas top.
I had St. Louis top. And then Dallas too.
But yeah, they've been, I think, highly disappointing. This was a 100% winnable group for them. I know they've struggled this year. I just think there's still too much talent in this team for them to not perform in a very winnable group for them. And I think they got done in by mainly their lack of goal scoring. 1 goal in 2 games is not going to get you out of the group, or at least majority of the time. And that was the case here. I think we needed more from the attack for Dallas, where I feel like they have the talent in that team to get more out of that attack. And to not even take a game to penalties, I think is super disappointing for them as well. To finish this tournament on 0 points is something I'd expect, and we saw from a team like Chicago. I thought we'd get more out of Dallas, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's totally fair. And I mean, Chicago, another one that you could throw into that same mix, a team that had the lead against SKC. Another, I mentioned a foot in the door of the next round, basically.
I think both for the Chicago group, Toluca and SKC are through already.
Yes, they are. But they had the lead. Kutsias had a goal in the 22nd minute, and then they folded, they crumbled, and lost 2-1. Against Toluca, I don't think they were really in it. Actually, yeah, they were in the lead against Toluca too. Kutsias again with an 8th-minute goal. This guy pops up in Leagues Cup every year. I feel like I remember him doing the same thing in Leagues Cup last year. Like, oh my God, remember this Kutsias? Because I think I called him out as a player to watch at the very beginning of the season because of his performances
multiple times now.
Yeah, because of his performances in the League Cup. He comes back, he does it again, and they fold. Now Toluca wasn't as surprising, but Sporting KC, who is, I'm going to look at this lineup here. Willie got started. Afrifa started out wide. There was no Johnny Russell in the starting lineup. Johnny Russell didn't even play. He might be injured. Yeah, he's probably injured. Back line, Kyrie Shelton playing as a right back. I mean, and I know they're converting him there. He's done relatively all right there over time, but they're missing Jake Davis, right? So just a whole bunch of things where it's like, okay, you would expect to see a bit better out of that group. And it was a bit disappointing to see them not progress out of this. Now, again, this goes back to this idea of like roster congestion or whatever. Like I'm looking at this Chicago lineup. Hugo Kuiper is nowhere to be found. I don't know if he got suspended or injured or what have you, but Tom Barlow started next to Kutsias. Chris Brady on the bench with a Jalen Shannon, a Chicago FC2 player playing as the right center back next to Salquist and Sequet in a back 3. Sequet famously a outside back to my understanding.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're right.
Right back. Yep. Sequet playing as a right back on the left-hand side, and Salquist the only true center back in the starting team.
Even the wing backs aren't defenders.
Right. Haile Selassie and Herbers, right? So we can go back to the whole schedule congestion thing and picking what you get to do, but it's quite clear that there were some teams that may not have taken this as seriously as others, even inside the MLS thing. That's a whole other conversation. The other team there's one other team. I don't know if you have another one you want to mention.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, the only other team I wanted to mention in this kind of build up here is another team that's got pressure on them. They've got the new coach bump, who's supposed to be giving them this extra energy, and they fell relatively short against a relatively poor Liga MX side, and that is Nashville SC. King BJ comes in, and everybody expects him to be the savior that he was with the men's national team when they played against the Caribbean islands of the Gold Cup, and blah, 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 and he's better than Greg, and blah, 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 and he comes in and he gets up against a Mazatlan side that has finished on average between the Clausura and the current Apertura in 15th and a half place in Liga MX out of 17.
And they're currently 17th right now.
They're currently 17th. I think they were 14th last Clausura. And they got absolutely walked off the pitch. They had 67% possession with one shot on target. Mazatlan said, yep, no problem. I'm going to sit right here, wait for you to make that inevitable mistake, and see you later. We're going to go. Now, again, they were missing players like Walker Zimmerman, for example, but this is, a relatively strong lineup. You had Jacob Schaffelberg in there. You had Hani Mukhtar in there. Surge was in there. Our king and savior, Alex Mawil, starting on the right wing. There was a new debut
Jack Moore was in there.
Who? Shaq Moore was in there. I mean, he went to the World Cup.
Yeah.
Joe Willis also in goal. There was a debut for Yazbek playing in the center midfield. I wish I was able to catch that game. Unfortunately, I didn't. I hope that he gets some game time on Tuesday. It looks like is the next game for them. I'd love to see him play because I think there's a lot of hype around him. But yeah, BJ's got a lot of work to do. I don't want to put this like, oh, Nashville underperformed. I think we all expect them to be relatively iffy.
No, you're right. This was an underperformance. They should definitely beat Mazatlan.
I don't know about that because I think they're in a really, really tough spot right now mentally, like as a group trying to break out of their last 6 games. They've lost all 6 games. Combined score of 2, 4, 8, 10, 16, including the Mazatlan game, is now 18 goals against, 4 goals for in the last 7 games. This team is down ridiculously bad. They need a lot of work to come out of this, and it's not going to be fixed with one day of BJ Callahan saying, "Let's go, boys." Like that's just not realistic.
That's
right?
not what I heard. That's not what I
listen,
heard. I thought he was going to come in and immediately make Nashville Supporter Shield winners.
Yeah, he was going to go in, win them a Supporter Shield in 6 months, and then go instantly back to the men's national team job. But then we wouldn't be allowed to have him because he's in MLS. So that's a catch-22.
He'd have to go overseas for a little bit.
Yeah, he'd have to go be like the assistant manager in the Swedish 3rd division before he could take that job.
That's what Greg did.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. I don't think it's an underperformance from Nashville. I think they do really, really well on Tuesday to show up and get a good result, even if they don't go through. Get a good result against New England. Be defensively strong. Have some sort of game plan go into effect. See some patterns of play. Get certain people involved. You're looking. I mean, they're still involved. They're still in the race. They're not completely out of it in terms of Leagues Cup. But I don't quite care about. If I'm Nashville, I don't quite care about moving on, right? They would need to beat New England pretty heftily to move on goal differential, which would be it'd be a head-to-head first, I believe. So just a win in regular time would put them through as the second place team. I think I don't quite know how the tiebreakers work once you get into the second game. I think this would be a really good way for them just to settle in and be like, let's understand how to be defensively solid. 18 goals in 7 games is a brutal, brutal run. Find a way to be stronger than that. Set a foundation. I don't know if, with the national team now out, I don't know if Walker Zimmerman now is involved and gets to be back in there, but I think BJ would do really well to have him in there and just find a way to get better at one thing in this game. And then use the next 2 weeks, if you don't make it through, to figure it out on the training pitch.
Talk about a battle of the mid. This Nashville New England game is going to be a rough one.
I think that's what we called Group I, was a stink fest.
Yeah,
bottom of Liga MX, and then the 2 of the worst teams in each conference of MLS.
Yeah, Nashville in the worst form out of every MLS team, and then New England selling off anybody on their
literally.
team. What a disaster class is going to be. Yeah.
Well, the one thing that hasn't been too much of a disaster class is Leagues Cup has still given us a ton of really exciting and fun moments. And I'm going to just jump in here and start off the insanity between Austin and Pumas in the very first game, or the first day of this tournament was mental, loco, crazy. Austin playing against Pumas is, first of all, it's a crazy game. 5 goals. Austin had a red card on their $7 million DP signing, Bukhari, within like 35 minutes, give or take. So after that, I didn't actually find the video of this goal, but I know that Stephen Cleveland wanted to claim a cross or a shot came in and he bobbled it. It fell down to a Pumas player and they scored a goal. Right. So they leveled the game, get into stoppage time. Austin concedes a penalty. It took 6, 7, 8 minutes to figure out this was actually a penalty. Like clear and obvious was out the door at this point. Tempers were flaring, people were pushing, shoving, cards got shown. All in this nonsense. Now we are 4 minutes into 7 minutes of extra time when we get to this point. Stephen Cleveland, the backup goalkeeper of Austin, steps up onto the PK and saves not only the shot, but the game against Pumas to give Austin all 3 points in the game. They didn't go to penalties after this. They were able to see the game out. The fact that Austin were able to sit in with 10 men for, trying to do the math here of the extra time, probably closer to 70 minutes against a Pumas team that is sitting top of the, or second from the top of the Apertura right now, and utilize backup goalkeepers to do stuff like this. I mean, that's Leagues Cup to a T. And not to mention Brad Stuver's hype man action on the sideline was just everything you want to see from a teammate. If you get benched for a backup, you can easily sit there and be like, oh, well, it doesn't matter. I don't care. I'm still going back in anyway. This dude is pure goalkeeper union. I mean, it looked like his eyes were about to jump out of his head. He was celebrating so hard. And that's what you love to see out of that. And the reason I bring that up is not just because of the moment, right? But we talked about it beforehand about how certain teams could use this tournament as a turning point for their season. Austin is that team, like storybook team, right? Goes in on an awful run, kind of starting to turn around, then fell off again, needed a really good performance against two very good teams, and not only stepped up once, but then stepped up twice against Monterrey with a different host of players, with some players rotated in, missing some star players. I mean, they were awesome. And that was one of my biggest takeaways from this, that Austin are about to prime themselves for not only a deep run in this tournament, but quite possibly a deep run in the MLS season to try and get themselves into the playoffs. And they are not too far away. They are just 2 points out of the play-in game. I mean, this is going to be such an exciting race towards the end.
Is that your ode, your love letter to Austin?
Well, they
like.
haven't gotten themselves to be enemies of the pod yet, so they have earned that. They've been nice.
Friends of the pod, Austin. Let's
Friends
go.
of the pod, Austin. That's
we
right.
need some friends. We only have enemies right now.
We got tons of friends.
We have a lot of friends, but we need whole like groups as friends, like whole teams.
Yeah.
I'll go with the penalty shootout from last night with Pumas and Monterrey. I mean, obviously that was a huge penalty shootout, determined which team was going to move on. So pressure was on, and I feel like you could tell just by the penalty shots that were coming up last night. But not only did Monterrey not score a single penalty in the penalty shootout, having two of them saved, and I believe one off the post, but Pumas winning the penalty shootout off of I don't know why I'm blanking on what the word is. What's the penalty shot where you you chip it?
A
Like
Panenka.
yeah. Winning it on a Panenka, I think was insane to not only win the penalty shootout, but to put your team through to the next round on a Panenka is major balls there. So I thought it was really, I think penalty shootouts are nicer when people are missing and goalkeepers are making more saves. It's a little bit boring when every team is just scoring every shot. So I thought it was an exciting penalty shootout, a lot on the line. Not as much chaos as fights going on. I think Charlotte and Cruz Azul had a fight in their game, and you mentioned I think Austin as well. But I still thought it was really exciting. It was fun to watch, and it was an exciting moment for Yeah, I think even like a neutral fan that's just watching.
Yeah, well, that was going to be another one that I talked about. But before we even do that, it was pretty much in as soon as the Austin game ended, Tijuana LAFC kicked off, and within 15 minutes, their head coach in Tijuana, head butted a fourth official. Got
Yeah, I do
got.
remember that.
I
That was
mean,
crazy.
just the runoff, right? So LAFC and Tijuana are playing this match, and I believe it was Buanga, but I may be wrong there. It was challenging with Rivera from Tijuana. Rivera goes up, gets upended, lands on the ground. I mean, he needed to be stretchered off. It was a brutal little a challenge here. But because I didn't really catch it, because I was catching up with all the Austin stuff, I saw the aftermath, and then all you hear are the announcers like, "I think Juan Carlos Osorio got sent off," and I was like, first off, former Metro, what's good? Metro mentioned Metro Massive, right? Like, just can't get away from us. Metro make the world take, right? But the rabbit holes this goes down is great, right? So first off, it's Juan Carlos Osorio standing up for his players. Thought that the challenge deserved more than just a foul or a stoppage or whatever. He gets into the face of the fourth official on the, or actually it was the AR first. This female AR on the side gets into her ear, just screaming. The fourth official steps on to tell him, "Hey, knock it off." He then gets into this face of the, because I'm watching the video right now. He gets into the face of this fourth official, pushes his head forward, says two or three more things, and the referee just turns around and goes, "Yep, that's it." And the guy comes over and he gets sent off. And not only that, he then didn't leave for like half an hour. He just sat on the bench like they would forget about they sent him a red card. So he's just sitting there like his legs are crossed. He's writing in his notebook. He's not really making eye contact with anybody. And the ref is sitting there like, "Are you gonna go? I've sent you off." And then he comes over and he goes, "You have to go." Like he motions like it's time to leave. And he gets up again. He gets back up in his face. He's like, "What do you mean you're going to send me off?" It's like, "What do you mean? He already sent you off. Like this isn't like oh, you're sending me off for doing nothing. Like you've been sent off. You have to leave." I think he had a 4-game suspension for that. But I mean, that's just right into Leagues Cup lore. I mean, first day, 15 minutes into your game, see ya, and now you're out of the tournament. So I would love to see what happens if he's still around next year with Tijuana, if he has to serve the rest of his suspension. He's still got 2 games left on it, I'm pretty sure.
That's like some of those suspensions we talked about a little while back for guys that left the league. So if they ever came back to the
Yes.
league, they're suspended to start.
Oh, that's another good episode idea. Yeah. How many players are still suspended from random tournaments? Like you go back to like NASL days or people who are
Oh my goodness.
still suspended from that league.
I didn't have any other like specific one. I know there's been some like great goals. I know Stroud's goal against Atlanta was a really good one. Brunetta against Miami had a banger as well. But if unless you had any other specific moments, I did want to have some time to like talk about some standout players from the tournament so far.
I mean, I guess you could also talk about the Red Bulls missing a bicycle kick attempt. I don't know if you saw this. I don't know if we said
Oh, and
it
then
to
the
you.
goalkeeper runs
Yeah,
off
so
to go
so
get
the
him.
goalkeeper comes to punch the ball, or was it the goalkeeper punch it? Yeah, goalkeeper punches it
Yeah.
away. Andres Reyes tries to hit a flying bicycle kick. Keeper thinks it's absolutely gone. The spin keeps it on the pitch, rolls it to Lewis Morgan. Keeper's gone off to pick up another ball, like completely out of the net. All of the other players from Pachuca not paying attention. Lewis Morgan has the ball, tight angle, but has the ball with an open net, and he misses. I mean, you can't
Sums up
sum
Red
us
Bull
up.
for you right there.
Can't sum us up any better than that. But yeah, no, the other good one is this little fight between Cruz Azul and Charlotte, where I come home from the gym. I was at the gym and I was like, okay, I'll catch the second half of it. And as soon as I turn it on, foul comes in, yellow card given. Everybody gets surrounding the referee, pushing, shoving, hands up, elbows up, whatever. A couple more yellow cards get sent. Ref's absolutely lost at this point. And then you see him, he's gotten called over to the sideline, and the camera cuts to the replay, and you got 2 assistant coaches coming out of the technical area up to each other to yell and point at each other. I don't think anybody made any contact, but as soon as they stepped out, he just goes bop bop, reds to both of them. So within like a 30-second span, there were 5 cards, 2 reds. The game had just completely gone at that point, and Charlotte was able to hold on for the result, which is always positive. But I mean, just some crazy, crazy stuff, man, that you just don't see every day, and stuff that you are excited to see.
Yeah, but they don't care about the tournament, clearly. I mean, why
No,
else would you?
they're just angry to be angry.
Yeah.
They're angry that they're here. That's why they're fighting and yelling and screaming. They're angry that they're here.
In an ever-changing world, the term AI gets thrown around pretty frequently. But what does it really mean? Is it a self-functioning robot set to take over the world, like in the movies? Is it the world's next supercomputer? Are your children asking you these questions and you don't know how to respond?
Well, don't you worry, because our friends at AI Digitales are here to help. AI Digitales and AI for Kids podcast can answer all of these questions and more with a family friendly and kid focused approach. As an engineer myself, I've always loved learning new things in any way that I could, and AI Digitales has the perfect approach for all ages.
This pod is centered around shorter, easy to consume, and most importantly, fun content that is separated by age level. So you won't have 4 hours of Andrew going on about RBNY before you get to the good stuff. Their episodes are split to engage elementary, middle plus, and even some parent focused content to get the concept of AI across to all levels.
So, if you or your kids ever want to know how your phone recognizes your faces to get unlocked, or how games know when to naturally get harder without you changing the settings, give a listen to the AI Digitales and AI for Kids podcast today.
All right. Should we talk about some standout players then?
Yeah, I mean, I got a couple on my mind. I mean, listen, Alex Maweel, Tom Barlow. Uh, was that not
I'm
what you meant?
I'm super glad that Tom Barlow was getting minutes in Leagues Cup.
Good, good.
Stoked about that. Do you have any like real
Yeah,
stand up
yeah, I
players?
do actually, and it actually was going to tie to my original scarf, which was going to be Minnesota, but Dane St. Clair making 16 saves against Necaxa. Necaxa. That I believe. I'm going to keep looking it up just to be
Probably
sure.
someone will tell you you pronounce it wrong
Yeah,
still.
Necaxa. There, it's a sa, not a cha. So hopefully our friends will be happy there. But Minnesota in that game pulls out the 1-0 win. I believe they were down a man for a good majority of that game.
70 minutes, I think.
Yes, yes, and yeah, I feel bad. Hugo Baccarat might be our Kip Keller this year. I was so hyped to see this dude play, and he's been really poor. So
You got
that's
to
too
curse
bad.
somebody. You always got to curse
I would
someone.
say I got it, but yeah, I mean, sat in. They had 14. I think they said 16 saves, but they're only 14 shots on target, so the numbers may vary. But yeah, dude stood on his head and easily one of the standout performers of this first couple of games. There's tons more to go through, but yeah, I'm going to be going with a lot of goalkeepers. So I don't know if you've got non-goalkeepers, but go right ahead.
Oh, dude, I definitely wanted to. The whole reason I wanted to do this was to shine the light on Dane Sinclair because he has gone insane. Not only in the Necaxa game, but he also was insanely good against Seattle too. He made 8 more saves in the Seattle game, including a penalty save, and not in like the penalty shootouts, like during the
Right
game.
in regular time. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, see, he's got at least 22 saves out of 2 games. That's twice the amount of saves that Andre Blake has in the entirety of MLS so far this season. And I know Blake's only played 7 games, but he Dane Sinclair has doubled his saves in 2 games
That is kind
versus
of
Blake's
crazy.
7. It's insane. He's gone absolutely nuts. I mean, he is clearly the reason that they even have a shot at the next round right now. Dane's so weird, where he goes like
Mm-hmm.
long periods where he's like totally under the radar, like just kind of like par of the course. And then he has these spurts where he just goes absolutely insane as the best goalkeeper on the planet. Clearly, this was one of those spurts.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
just glad it wasn't against Red Bull. That's usually what happens is goalkeepers get really good as soon
I
as
I do remember that one game he had against Red Bull. I can't remember if
yes,
that was this year or if that was
it was
last year.
last year.
He went nuts against Red
Yeah,
Bull.
don't remind me. I don't need any of that nonsense.
I would love
Uh,
to remind you. I will give a shout out for a player that's done well in Marcel Ruiz. And I'm doing this because I'm patting myself on the back because I believe he was my player to watch for them. But he scored 2 goals in their opening game against Chicago. And has put them in prime position, I think, to move on to the next round. Obviously, that depends on the result of the SKC game, but I thought he did really well. He also had 1 key pass, 54 touches, and I mean, I guess the 2 goals is really the main point. But yeah, I think he's done well so far.
Yeah, I'll stick in the Liga MX side and shout out another goalkeeper from Tijuana, Jose Antonio Rodriguez. LAFC beat the snot out of Tijuana. Statistically, I mean, they just
Yeah, I mean they had 20 shots, 10 on target with 31% possession.
yeah,
It's like
yeah.
every time they had the ball, they were just wrecking them.
Well, and that was the thing. Tijuana had the ball, and they were like, they did the same thing. Like, bet, give me the ball, and oh, Denny Bawanga out in 30 yards of space. Here you go.
That's a good
Boop,
idea.
boop, boop. And I think I put it out there. I was like, yeah, maybe, just maybe, you might want to change your tactics. Oh, wait, you can't. Your coach has been sent off for trying to fight the entire referee crew. Forgot about that.
It all comes full circle.
Yes, you've done this to yourself. Yeah, but that was it, and you know they lost 3-0, and Bawanga had a goal, but realistically, this game could have been 6, 7, 8, 9 because he was just unreal. He looked really, really good, and they're out. They're done. They're over. Their tournament's done, but he was really, really impressive to me, and I wouldn't be shocked if he carries that into next, the next couple of games in the Apertura because I mean, I remember watching. I was like, oh my god, he's done it again. He's done it again. He's done it again. Like the game genuinely by halftime should have been 5-0. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean he's a seriously talented player. A big mistake to let him just cook in space. Definitely need to. I think you need to work your whole tactics around this guy at this point.
Yeah,
Uh,
defensively.
One more player I will give my shout out to. I'll go with Evander, who I think has had a really, really, really good season for Portland so far. So much better than last year. He's bounced back really well, and I think he is a massive reason behind this Portland success in the attack. And I think he was more so the reason in this tournament as well. He had 3 assists across the 2 games, a major part as to why Portland was able to score 6 goals, win both games, and top their group with the maximum amount of points. I think he's had a really good season. And so far, he's continued it right into Leagues Cup. Hasn't missed a beat.
No disagreements there. I think he's been really, really solid for them. The other player that I kind of just have enjoyed watching, he hasn't had the ton of success that you would expect so far, though his group was tougher. I got to watch Marcelo Flores last night, the Tigres winger who came out of he was in the Arsenal Academy. This guy was between Canada, Mexico, and United States, could play for all of them, and he picked Mexico. That dude was so much fun to watch on the ball, man. I mean, he was going up against Miami's defense, and every time I looked up, if he got the ball into space, it was like going up against because Jordi Alba was so withdrawn. I mean, they pulled one of their center backs over, like Kristov, or on the other side, it was like why not? And my goodness, this dude just had a field day with him. He just torched every single one of them. So just excited to watch him again because he was just a lot of fun.
For sure.
All right. All right. Well, why don't we end it there? I think that was a good hour-long chat, and we can
Yeah.
we can move on from there. Maybe we do another episode just on those new players coming in, players that we'd like to see. But thanks everybody for listening. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you're getting ready to enjoy the rest of Leagues Cup. If you do, make sure you follow us wherever you get your podcasts so you know the next time we go live. And then follow us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, so that you can jump in on the clips, comment, interact with us, things like that. So really, really excited to keep going with this. We are pushing forward and forward and forward, and we hope you come along for the ride. Anything else you want to say, Cone?
Nope.
Yeah, I've been listening to the Peter Crouch podcast lately, and like at the end of every episode, they all say like a sign-off word. They call it Chumbawamba. It's back stronger. Like if you had a bad week or a bad day, come back stronger the next day. I think you need to come up with a good word like that so we can end every podcast saying like, you know, Connor's bad hair. And that means don't worry if you're having a tough time. Eventually you might be able to get there, something fun like that.
I will take your notes and consider them for the next episode.
That's your job. That's your role. You got to have something good for next episode.
Okay.
All right, y'all. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see you next time on the next episode of the Designated Players and MLS podcast. See ya.